Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Knights Open Circuit IEEE's podcast.
I'm your host, Julia Lampert.
And today we're going to be interviewing a lot of the presidents along the engineering organizations here at UCF.
We have Daniel and Reed from KXR.
And then we have Rachael from IISE.
It's great to have you guys on today. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off with a couple of questions. So you guys just tell us who you are and like what organization you're in and what your role is.
So I'm Rachael. I'm the president of IISE, or the Industrial Engineering Club.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a good day today. I am Daniel Sherlock from Knights Experimental Rocketry.
I'm Reed Forehand from Knights Experimental Rocketry.
Very nice. And my name is John. I'm president of IEEE. So I would say with us being presidents, it's a lot of misconception comes along with how much work goes alongside of it and how much time commitment there is to it. Because a lot of students, when they look outside of it, they think a lot of this is impossible, or, oh, how do you guys have time for that when you have all these engineering classes? So I think addressing a lot of that stuff, where we go beyond that and how we organize all of our stuff and how everyone does it respectively, would be a good way to start it out. So Rachael, how do you guys go about managing your time or delegating tasks, and how do you organize your whole board?
So we mainly did a lot of our work over the summer because most of our members had a lot more time at that time. I had more time then. And then it just gave us time if something went wrong, then we could go into the fall. But I like doing everything early, and I definitely think being a president is something that people shouldn't shy away from, just because I definitely thought it was intimidating. And I almost viewed presidents as almost like a higher being, because you're like, these people, how do they do this? Like, they're doing so much for a club, and even like my club's, a whole major. But I definitely think starting in the summer can help you a lot, and it's definitely made my responsibilities more manageable while I take classes.
Good for you for starting in the summer. Yeah. So I guess a little bit about myself. I do a part-time CWEP, Systems Engineering. In addition to my classes, I think KXR is the only thing I do besides those two. Of all the things I do, doing the club, the projects, managing it is definitely where I find my passion. So I don't find it difficult at all to find time to be president. It's just it's one of the few things I actually really, really love to do, and it gets me excited. So the question is, how do I manage the time? I think it's super doable. A lot of people in the club already invest equal, if not more, time in their own clubs. So being president, this semester uniquely, I get to play my role and manage the club. And so it's actually been a lot more freeing because we're a pretty large club. We have a lot of leaders. And so my job is to trust and enable all the officers in the club. I support them to do their role. And they know that they have my support, and I trust them, and they're passionate. And so I actually have had a lot of time freed up just by being able to delegate a lot of those tasks.
Yeah, for me, Google Calendar runs my life. My Google Calendar is absolutely insane to look at, but having everything listed down and having everything in a readily accessible place is what enables me to kind of keep everything on schedule and not lose things as other things take priority. And then more so in the club activities, what I've found through KXR and through other leadership positions I've held is there's so many people that are hungry for leadership and want to learn and want to take that responsibility. And that by letting those people take part of the load that's on your plate, you can enable them to become better leaders and also take a lot of that strain off of yourself.
Absolutely. And those are all very excellent points on both perspectives, where that is in essence what the job of president should be. It's where you take a step back and kind of give the reins to the officers or any other member that wants to get involved. Our job is to give them the resources to succeed and grow. And so once they're able to do those things, it's almost like a self-fulfilling loop, because you want to provide from the ground up. Your members and officers don't work for you, you work for them. So it's a great opportunity for them to, whenever you leave the reins or whenever you move on to do other things, it becomes a more of a self-sustaining thing, because you've inspired so many people to go beyond their comfort zone, be ambitious, and achieve things that they didn't believe they thought was possible. But the more they do it, becomes more realistic to them. And in reference to the Google Calendar thing, 100%. I feel like the more you add to your plate, it's like it becomes very difficult to kind of remember things when things happen. Definitely when I wasn't using it and I first started doing president stuff, I definitely fumbled a lot. Like, oh no, that was today or that's tomorrow, and trying to like balance it between everything. Because beforehand, if you were just a student, if you were just to do that, coasting along the entire degree, then yeah, you can probably go away with like, oh, like I know I have like my assignments due and all that. It's very autonomous to think that way. But the more to add to your plate, I definitely think having like using external tools to help you kind of manage all that time is really important. So I think that we can jump to what you guys do specifically within your own respective clubs. So you guys can talk about any workshops, any projects, or any other events that you guys have, whether there be conferences or any like social or service events.
All right. So for IISE, it's mainly geared towards, helping kids get stuff on their resume, since a lot of industrial engineers already have a lot of the projects, which I know a lot of the other clubs focus a lot on the projects, but we're loaded with projects in all of our classes. So I think a lot of the times we want to get away from the projects when it's time to do club stuff. But I definitely think like with workshops, we're working on like a LinkedIn workshop, because I think a lot of people just don't know how to use that, including me even. And we have like a mentorship program where we have like professional mentorship group of people, and they get matched with the students, so then they can get advice from somebody who's actually out in the industrial engineering world, not in school. So that's pretty interesting. And then in the spring, we're in charge of hosting the Southeast Regional Conference for IISE. So that'll be a fun time. But yeah.
KXR it's in its niche. We do projects, and we basically only do projects. So our mission is to develop passion within our students and to provide them a platform to learn skills that prepare them for the professional industry. So as a project-based organization, we try to host as many projects and opportunities as possible. So I guess I'll leave the propulsion project for you to announce. We compete at the Spaceport America Cup, which is the largest collegiate rocketry competition in the world. So we've been competing there, UCF, for the past couple of years. And just recently, KXR has been working with AIAA and SETS to compete there. We have the NASA student launch in Huntsville, Alabama, which engages a lot more of our underclassmen, entry-level members in the club. And we have a really robust certification program for high-power rocketry. Students get to design, build, and launch a high-power rocket motor, and they get certified through IEEE and NAR to safely launch these high-power rockets, and they get to buy more expensive hardware and drain their wallets.
Yeah, so beyond what Daniel just said, our name is Knights Experimental Rocketry, and so we like to really push that like experimental thing. So we have two other projects we're working on. One is an ion propulsion project, where basically you're ionizing gas and pushing out those ions to create thrust in space. It's very electrical heavy, which a lot of people don't really think of when they think of like rockets and space propulsion. And then our other is going to be we are working to build UCF's first flight-capable liquid propulsion system.
That's pretty fantastic on like both those perspectives, and it's the fact that you guys are working really hard to expose each of your members to very important aspects when it is going into industry, rather that be on the professional end of sides or on the technical sides. Both are as equally as important, because if you're technical and you don't know how to present that and sell that, then how are these businesses going to be able to sell the idea that, oh, I am capable of working this job? So you need both aspects to really succeed in this kind of industry, because it's very competitive, because there's a lot of great talent out there. UCF is only growing and becoming more of a prestigious school day by day, through the use of its members and its easy access to industry around the area. So I mean, definitely where UCF is notorious for like defense contracting and all that. So it's I think you guys are doing a fantastic job going through that.
Yeah, I actually think all of our students should join their respective national organizations. So since we only do projects, a lot of our students just do KXR, but it's incredibly important that they get both sides of the dime. They get the professional development and they get the project experience. So super important to note.
Exactly right. And at IEEE, that's what we focus a lot on trying to do, is trying to get a more well-rounded experience from the perspective of learning computer and electrical engineering concepts. So right now we have like a hands in a little bit of everything right now. We're going to try to like delegate that to different specific clubs that would have a more desire to do more projects, because we feel that we have a lot of our efforts in designing complex workshops. We're doing a lot of projects right now. We do a good amount of social events, service events. So we kind of hit all the bases so everyone can show each different respect to their personality, rather that be in IM sports, technical projects, or showing their passion and kindness through service events to help out local community for like nothing at all. No one, and the thing is, it's crazy that people are doing all this work and it's completely all voluntary. I think definitely on the presidential side, very grateful and to the people putting in the time, because it's definitely difficult, or can be difficult at times when there's not as an immediate incentive to do it. It's more so a delayed gratification, since you're putting in a lot of time to hone in your skills to eventually get something out of it. And
So about that, you ever see your students get that full-time offer they want?
absolutely, and it's one of the best feelings you can have, like as like a president, because it's like to see them put in all that work and to see the fruits of their labor finally pay off, and like actually see that. And a lot of definitely a lot of the juniors and seniors of our club right now are definitely getting a lot of opportunities now, since it's internship season. So congratulations to all of them, and for anyone who hasn't gotten any yet, keep holding out, don't give up. That time will definitely come. Just keep working hard and making sure that you're putting your name in the hat as much as you can and talking to the right people. But keep your head up and don't ever let a bad interview or a ghosted email ever set you back or put you down. But yeah, so I definitely think an IEEE's like near future, I think we want to kind of minimize the amount of projects we do, and instead when kind of share or collaborate more with clubs like IISE and KXR. So you guys
you're looking for some opportunities?
Absolutely, yeah. Because we, it's nice to have a lot of these like high end projects right now, because I think we have 8 going on right now. But to have, I think I'm a whole believer in the quality over quantity idea, where it's like I definitely think doing a lot of different things is great, but I think with higher end projects, considering we are students, it is a more realistic goal to have fewer projects that a lot of more passionate people can work on. And the multidisciplinary ones are always the really cool ones too. Because right now, we plan to finish about 4 or 5 projects within the next couple months or next semesters. So whenever our new like project cycle comes along, we'll have fewer of those, but it will be a tight correlation with you guys or anyone who wants to start projects to get others involved. So we can put more time and focus into developing more workshops.
So are your projects like internal projects, or do they compete outside of UCF?
Mostly internal. Like, we don't have any competition ones, which we are heavily looking into, because that kind of gives us a more stricter timeline and what we're trying to look towards. Because when we're just making it a project to make a project, it's very difficult to be like, oh, when's the timeline for that? And it's very easy to get complacent and just be like, we have time.
It's also, you get to build your project and then go to the Airbnb with all your friends.
Exactly.
And
It's a whole process, and it's a fun time.
yes,
Like, seeing all you guys do your like doing the competitions, it really like sparked us an idea, and we have a lot of I guess, push to do some of those projects from not only IEEE National, but a couple of professors here. Dr. Rez and Dr. Chan definitely said, like, you guys should definitely do, like, competitions, because they believe that we have the talent to do it. And I definitely think so, too. We have a lot of brilliant people on our side. So if we want to make either, like, sumo bots or whatever kind of project there is out there that's a competition, I think IEEE can definitely throw in the hat and make it pretty competitive.
absolutely, go for it.
Yeah, 100%. So if you can say to all the possible new students coming in from either who are watching this podcast or freshmen coming in and they see your club, what would you usually tell them to become a member? Like, how would you kind of inspire them to do that so you get the largest turnout you can possible?
I would say that the club has helped me in a lot of ways, and along with even my board members, just because it gives you a feel for what industrial engineering is, because a lot of people don't even know what it is. So you might just see it on the intro to engineering PowerPoint and be like, oh, that's a thing? Is it in a factory? So it definitely helps people explore the major, especially when people might be like undecided. And we also have a lot of people transfer midway through, so they could be mechanical, they could be aerospace, and then they decide, you know what, nah, like, I'm gonna be industrial. And so we get a lot of people who are like juniors and now newly industrial engineers. So I definitely think, like, if it's even something you're considering, you really don't like calculus, you like statistics more, then definitely I think come check out the club, because it might be better. It's also, I feel like, one of the engineering disciplines that's more related to business, and you're able to make that switch a lot easier than some of the other majors. But in terms of just like what the club can give you, it gets you like a lot more involved with the community. You learn a lot more about like what you'd be doing, will you actually like it, because that's a big thing. You don't want to get out of school and not like what you're doing. But then I think it's just helped me a lot get involved mainly with like career fairs and like conferences, and give me the confidence to do that, because before that, it's like, oh, I see it's going on at UCF, but I don't want to do that, I'm too scared, I haven't had an internship before. That was always my excuse. But
If I could jump in, those
Yeah.
conferences are really cool because students realize that these jobs and opportunities are super accessible, and then it becomes a game in order to get them.
yeah, and it really is like just making those connections, because I just went to the women's engineering conference, and all my members that went like ended up with pretty good offers, and even from the SHEP conference too. So I know it's like a lot of money, but you get a lot of really good connections, and even if you don't get something that time, they're already thinking of you when they're releasing their jobs maybe in a few months. So definitely think those are worth it.
Yeah, I met a Blue Origin recruiter. I think Reed knows the guy, but I won't stop bothering him until I get an internship.
That's what you got to do. You got to be persistent, because the thing is, if you keep doing that, they're not going to forget your name and get the name out of your head, even if it's annoying to them. It was like, yo, Daniel keeps messaging me about wanting to be an intern. We just don't have anything right now. But the thing is, you're stuck in their brain, and that's glued to them.
Yeah, I'll get my interview one day.
Exactly. So do you guys have any like places that are kind of like dream jobs for you, or anything like specific like that?
I like Blue because it pays a lot of money. It's also the launch industry is inspiring. Right now I work at Lockheed Martin, which is defense, so it's not as inspiring building weapons than like building rockets that can move humanity into the next chapter of technology.
I'm kind of in a weird place with it because I'm like basically there already. I'm a grad student, so I spend half my time doing research for UCF and then half my time at Blue Origin. And so I feel like at this point I'm like exactly where I wanted to be when I started college, which is nice.
Awesome. And how does that feel? How does it feel to like once you started as a freshman, that was a very long road to get to where you're at. How does it feel to kind of like be in that seat? It's like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah, it's honestly like unbelievable because it's one of those things of like you have this dream that you're like trying to do the whole time you're in college and even before in like high school and stuff. And then you get there and it's awesome. And then you go, okay, I never thought about what I want to do next. And so you're in like kind of this weird limbo of like, okay, I'm at the pinnacle of what I thought was possible. Where do I go from there?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. I don't think like a lot of people would consider definitely not me right now because it's just like my mind is all like, all right, finish finals, finish school, get this done. That's a great point that you brought up. I don't think a lot of people have the foresight at the time right now because we're focused on just trying to get that job, but having that idea of what comes after that, because life is at that point, no one's making that schedule for you anymore. Like professors aren't making your homework things. They're not setting up what you need to do. So that's all on you now. So it's rewarding to have all that time to yourself, but also it could be overwhelming knowing that like, well, what can I do with my time? What can I do?
Yeah. So the best advice I was ever given about that and like planning your career is don't plan for what you want your first job out of college to be. Ask yourself what you want the last job before you retire to be and structure your career around that.
Wow. I haven't even heard about that one before. That's pretty good.
What's the last job you want before you retire?
Oh, I'm still figuring that out.
Reed, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, as a grad student and like doing research, what do you plan to go into academia at all? Like, why are you in a club that does so many projects when you're doing research?
So, my area of expertise and like the thing that has always interested me is simulating fluid flows. It's like a very complex field that is being figured out daily. And I know that's what I want to do, whether it's in industry or in academia, is I want to go into that field. And so grad school is kind of like the path to that. And at this point in like my collegiate career, I've held leadership positions. I've been like president of clubs before, and I kind of took a step back because I'm the propulsion director for KXR at this point, and so I don't necessarily want to do Daniel's job and be the man leading, but because I've done industry and because I've finished all my coursework and stuff at this point, I want to take all of those members that I see like have that potential to be really good engineers, and I want to use my experience to guide them.
That's great. So, what is your major?
Yeah, so I'm aerospace engineering.
Okay,
I'm an aerospace engineering.
Is that what you're
PhD
going for
student.
your? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what's your bachelor's in? Also aerospace?
Yeah, aerospace all the way through.
Okay. You know, I was gonna say I did an internship with a naval nuclear laboratory, and there's a lot of fluids that goes on in there.
Oh yeah.
Is that something that you've ever looked into?
Yeah. Some of the research I've done before has been for naval stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I work at Dr. Kinzel's computational fluids lab for
right.
research, and I love it personally because like I came into UCF being like rockets. I want to do rockets.
Yeah.
Not knowing what that meant. And doing my research there has let me see like every side of fluids there is possible, and kind of helped construct my knowledge outside of what industry does, which has been really nice.
That is very, very cool. So, everybody's had an internship here, has had jobs in the industry of some kind. Do you think that you got that through your club? Like, do you think that that's a good way to go and find internships, or do you think that you should go on your own to career fairs and use Handshake? Because I personally got mine through Handshake, but I know that conferences are really great and like stuff like that.
I've never actually heard of anyone getting opportunities from Handshake. Congratulations.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
guys, I'm serious. Like, a lot of my friends got their internships through Handshake. Like, a lot
Oh.
of them.
So I guess my first opportunity was as a freshman doing quality engineering for CWEP. So that was just a long application process. I just had to wait a long time. I kept on updating my resume. But like as a freshman, I had really no experience besides working in this rocket club. So like I guess like that'll answer the question is like why should you join like our club? Well, I think every engineering student should join a club. Because like all these other majors,
Agreed.
like business students, they have the fraternities and the Greek life they join. Engineering students have their engineering clubs. And if you're not in an engineering club, it's really difficult to find something to talk about in your resume besides just like maybe an internship experience that you have not gotten yet because you're not in a club.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, yeah, the experience that at least students in KXR get is like really next to nothing when I hear like other students like wow, like they build rockets, propulsion systems. They do something that was like seemed absolutely incredibly impossible, and now they have this confidence to really be intimidated. They feel comfortable being intimidated. Um, so that's why they should join KXR.
I would say like I got my first internship I guess like 2 years ago now. So I guess I was a little late. I wasn't a freshman. So but I definitely was very frustrating. I remember it being, and I was stressing a lot because it's just frustrating. You never hear back from most of these people. And a big thing I learned from some of the leaders in my club early on was like put the robot project and the boat project on your resume. So if you haven't done that, put that on there because at least it'll make it look like you've done something and that's something you can talk about. But definitely once you get one, well, I also would say that it's important to look at when the job was posted, because if it was posted like 3 months ago, don't bother applying. You're probably not going to hear back from them because they've probably already filled the role. Like focus on the ones that are newer within like a month, I'd say at the longest. But you just get lucky. I feel like I applied to a Hershey internship last year and I ended up making chocolate over the summer. And now, like, thanks to my club, I'm still in manufacturing, and I got a full-time offer from the Sweet Conference for Procter and Gamble. So now I'll be making, So now I'll be making toilet paper. So you really just you don't know like where life is gonna take you, and you just have to stay positive because that's completely different than like what you guys have been doing, like with the rockets and all of that stuff. Like that is just. Yeah, there's just more. I would definitely like search companies that maybe you don't even think has engineering, because like Procter and Gamble has electrical engineers that work there. Like the lady who hired me was an electrical engineer. Her and her husband both work there. Like so, it just like definitely look into those random companies like Hershey and
There's a booth for spam. The spam company. Yeah.
and like Campbell Soup. Like
Yeah.
go make soup. Like there's jobs for engineers everywhere. Like don't just look in defense.
At the SHEP conference, someone came back with a box of Tide Pods.
See that might be me over the summer.
Is that Procter and Gamble?
It is.
It is. Wow, that could be you.
Yeah. So my like number one thing that I hammer to anyone that's like trying to get an internship is networking. There's kind of this stereotype among like engineers that we're like introverted and we're not good with talking to people, and all of that. And I always push people to go to mock interviews and go to these conferences and gain those interview skills, because being able to effectively communicate is like the number one thing. From so many hiring managers that I've talked to, the reason that a lot of people get the jobs they get isn't necessarily the experience, because your degree, you're going to have roughly the same experience as every other engineer that graduates from here. The big thing is, do I want to work with this person? Mm-hmm. And if you're someone that when they spend 15 minutes talking to you in this interview, if you can come off really well, and if you can be someone that they go, yeah, I'd like to sit next to this person in a cubicle every day. That's such a huge thing that I feel so many engineers forget because they're bogged down in, oh, I need technical experience. Oh, I need whatever. And they forget the human aspect of it.
Fun fact, during my interview for my internship this past summer, they kept asking me if I knew how to do stuff, and every single question I had to be like, no, but I'm willing to learn and I'm good at working with people. And my whole interview was just a conversation. So if you're good at having conversations with people and like keeping people engaged and like being able to talk to them, easy money, honestly. But experience is good too, so join clubs.
Would you say that first interview is like a first date?
You got it.
I would say that I think one of our Publix came in and did a workshop with us for technical interviews, and they had said something to remember when you're going into an interview, especially the first one, is that you're already qualified for the job. They already know you're qualified if they gave you an interview. So like you just have to it really is just about selling it. But like in first date sense, I feel like you don't really know do they check all my boxes, so I think you have a step up from what you would have on a first date if you got an interview.
So I always ask questions to the interview, and I always appreciate honesty. Like when yesterday I spoke to a SpaceX interviewer, and I'm like, tell me about your work-life balance. Like, do you get to feed your cat at home? Like, how do you manage it? And their response was incredibly impactful of whether or not I want to choose a company for the next 30 years of my life or whatever. Yeah. They were super honest. And she was like, yeah, I came from Northrop Grumman. We had every other Friday off. We went hiking during the week. And then she came to SpaceX and she's like, yeah, it's completely and totally different. She's like, it's not because I'm being forced to do this job. It's just because it's I want to go to Mars, or I want to help go to Mars. And so she didn't get to feed her cat some days because she was just working so hard.
Another good question that I like to ask in my interviews to the interviewer is what is the culture in the company like? Is it diverse? Are they trying to be more diverse? And are they inclusive with the people that they have? Because I don't want to be the only girl in a group,
Don't they always say yes? What do they say?
Sometimes they're like, no, but we're trying to be more diverse. And I'm like, that's why I got this interview. Okay. But
No, you deserved it. You earned it.
listen, I'm qualified enough. And, but yeah, so I feel like having good camaraderie at a company is really good too. And being able to be friends with people, at least friendly with people. I think that's a really big thing. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
I would say a question I always ask is what's something about your company that most people don't know that you wish they knew? And I got my connection from SpaceX through that because somehow she remembered me from a conference, and which, to be fair, if you're going to interview with SpaceX, make sure you do have technical skills because they really do test you on that. What did you say? Talk about technical. So for anyone that might not know, at least the interview process I had to go through, at least with them, it was 5 rounds. And yeah. And so they have a technical interview in there. Which
sorry, was this for the Hershey chocolate?
For SpaceX.
Oh.
Yeah. And
wow.
the 4th round being a technical assessment. And you better know what you're doing because it took me 8 hours. So just be prepared. I did it at home. Yeah, they send you something and then you have 48 hours to do it. Yeah, there's no check for that. There is no check for that.
Yeah, I would say that that's very similar to my experiences as well.
Okay, that's good to know that it's not just them.
I've walked out of technical interviews before, feeling like I learned nothing in my entire degree.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But you never know because like sometimes you really feel like it didn't go great and they call you back.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, you did great. Next interview." So always stay positive because you really never know. Like people could have done worse than you.
And I've had quite a few members come to me and be like, "Oh, I bombed this interview. Oh, this didn't go great. I'm not going to get this job or whatever." And the thing that I always tell my members when they say that to me is that like, yeah, you might not get this opportunity out of it, but that is experience that you've gained and that's practice that you get. And if you get asked that exact same question in your next interview, you now have a strategy for how you're going to handle it, which is like the most
100%.
important thing.
Reed, you're so wise.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's whenever you make a mistake, it's just another tool in the tool belt. Like, okay, I now know what not to do. So every example or every interview you go through is always a good interview, even if it's for experience or it's for outcome. So definitely, like, congratulations to all you guys for getting the jobs that you want and working towards those goals, because it's a pretty good accomplishment, and it's really fulfilling when you start like solidifying these goals and jobs and like working towards your future, because definitely the finances help, but it's working towards something that you're really passionate in doesn't feel like work at all, and I think that's the fun part of it. And like this past month, I had the opportunity to interview for a fellowship position for AMD, partnered with UCF, and I eventually got that. So that was yeah, thank you. And it was a really fun experience. I was able to sit down and talk with all the team leads. There was 2 rounds of interviews. The first one was technical. Did not know a single thing he asked me because it was more electrical engineering based. It was he mentioned something about an eye diagram. I did not know what that was. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's think of it, you have a sine wave, right? And then you have another sine wave that is flipped or inverted. So it's like you have these like little bubbles in a graph, if that makes sense. And those little bubbles have data in them, little gaps between it. And basically what they would do on an architecture level for a processor is each of those little bubbles in the eye diagram holds a specific piece of data. Like there could be 8 bubbles, and that could be like 8 bits of data. So that could be a character, an integer, or any like specific piece of data coming through on the instruction level, so you can interpret that and like send it to the next block inside like the processor. There's a lot of things that was going on that went way above my head. I was like, I don't even know what that means. But even though he knew that, I didn't know what that was. I asked a lot of questions about what it was, how it worked, and showing that passion, like, okay, I don't know something, but I'm eager to learn it, like you were saying, Julia, is the key thing.
Oh my god, this eye diagram is so interesting.
Ooh. Yeah, when he said that, I looked it up and I thought it was like an eye diagram, like of your like peoples and everything. I was like, no, that's not what it was at all.
I could totally make a career out of this.
You could. It pays bucks. Let me tell you, there's a big market in eye diagrams. Let me tell you, it's pretty good.
Wow.
Ooh. But yeah, it was really cool. And the second part of the interview was just like a team meeting where you had a guy doing machine learning, architecture, and hardware verification, and it's going through that experience is a really good experience. Not only because working for those like one of these big companies is one of my dreams, because I want to develop and design CPUs or GPUs in the future, and those are the guys to do it. So it's a pretty fulfilling experience to get to that point. I'm just starting now, so it's definitely still got a long way to go, but it's good to start seeing connections and paving a road towards that. And it's not even just for me either. For those students who want to go into CPU or GPU design, this fellowship is brand new. It's starting this next semester, and as soon as my partner and I do a great job with this, because it's not a matter of if, it's we are going to do it. It's going to show AMD that UCF is capable of doing this stuff, and it's going to give more people opportunities, not just myself. And that's another background motivation of I want to do good. So they keep investing into this university, because if they do, that's going to grab the eyes of a whole bunch of different other companies. Because like, oh, AMD, SpaceX, Blue Origin, all these other companies have their hands in UCF, and it's for a very good reason. Is because there's a lot of great talent here, and we're one of the largest colleges in the nation. So, and I believe that our engineering department, not just electrical or computer end sides of things, but it's only becoming more prestigious, more advanced. The fact that we have access to the James Webb Telescope and doing research for that is massive. A lot of clout for us. So in my eyes, a win for any club or any department for engineering at UCF is a win for all of us. So
Thank you for your service, John.
No, thank you. You guys are like sending stuff into the sky and winning competitions on the KXR side of things. So
we
you guys should be
tried.
very proud of yourself. So it's very, very impressive.
John, what's your like title, like your job title?
My job title is it's a fellowship under advanced computing. So it's all that whole aspect of, because making a GPU and CPU is very complex. It's think of it as you're making a tiny little subsystem in a city with transistors. And when you look at these things on a microscope, it literally just looks like a giant city with a whole bunch of different blocks and things all over the place. It's really weird to think about, but there's a huge process that goes behind it. There's the physical part of it where you actually go into these labs where you see the guys like in the white suits doing the whole wafer stuff, which is really cool. Those are your electrical engineers doing that. They have go electrical. Those are the guys who are doing a lot of the semiconductor sides of things and making sure that gets as precise as possible, because there's a lot of defects that happen when you make that wafer, and there could be defects and yields. So you want to make sure that they are there to moderate and see how the machine's working to make sure you're getting as much yield out of the wafer as possible. And the further up you go, you start dealing with more abstract things like how are we going to build the architecture for this. You start talking about different types of like digital logic of how you can do things. Like there's a whole bunch of different gates that we learn in our own classes with like logic, like OR gates, AND gates, and all that. And all those like fundamental gates are used to build components. Something that each processor. Ooh. Good song. That's a good song. No, that's awesome. So we when you go about doing that, there's each processor has its own memory. Like we have RAM and everything. We're very familiar with that in our computers, like 32 gigs or anything like that. But every processor internally has memory, whether it be cache or on like internal memory or RAM, which that takes a lot of work and a lot of like conceptualizing to understand how all those blocks are built. But yeah. Oh yeah. So the for the computer and electrical engineers out there, the stuff I'm talking about is pulled from Digital Systems and CompOrg and CompArc.
I'm not taking that.
We'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up with the advice right after that question. But favorite classes at UCF that you have taken, definitely from my end. Right now, I'm taking a class called Computer Aided Design in VLSI, and a lot of acronyms there. But it's a VLSI stands for Very Large Scale Integration. Very creative name, I know, but that's fancy words for saying I'm going to build a circuit with billions of transistors. That's all that means. So it's like it's learning the algorithms of how to use less transistors for the exact same thing. So let's say I had 10 million transistors to like produce like some output. This class teaches you how to minimize that hardware down to maybe even 1,000 transistors. So you can use an incredibly less amount of like hardware to do the same thing. Obviously, there's like give and takes for everything that could increase latency or whatever. But yeah, definitely a really important class if you want to really go into designing and optimizing hardware. Then FPGAs, learning how to program those has been really great. That's a great class. And computer architecture. Those three super fantastic classes around the design for like from my perspective, since I'm super biased with that. I've heard a lot of people who don't like those classes, but it's very abstract because you don't get like, since these things are super small, it's like you don't get to see it at all. You don't touch it. You just like, you have to think about it and you have to know if this is how this works. And I think definitely if you can't see it, it's very difficult to say, yes, I know how this works. But yeah, definitely the computer architecture level classes. So architecture, FPGAs, and CAD and VLSI.
Well, if I can't see it, it's so hard for me to comprehend it. So good for you. My favorite class is heat transfer with Dr. Tien, because Dr. Tien is definitely the greatest professor I've had at UCF, and I've been able to really like conceptually understand the heat transfer. And my second favorite class is space system concepts with Dr. Osbey, because he's the only guy I would trust to make 7:30 a.m. fun. And it's like rocket equation, so that's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've had 6 classes with Osbey at this point, and every single time it's great. So for undergrad, like my 2 big classes are high-speed aerodynamics and then aerotherm of propulsion systems, because those 2 classes, it was like the point where in the middle of an engineering degree, there's like that lull where you're like, oh, this is the classes that build up the foundation, but they're not necessarily like applicable to what I want to learn. And so it was the point where I like cleared that lull and I was like, okay, I'm in my actual like serious major stuff now. This is actually what I want to do. It's great. And then in grad school, my favorite class is actually the one I'm in right now, which is a computational fluids class that basically breaks down the way that you take like a volume and you break it into little squares, and then you find the difference between all the squares and different methods for solving fluid flow within like an actual simulation system, which is very interesting.
Okay, well, nothing I took sounds like that. Definitely in our, like, a teacher really can make or break a class is what I've learned. And nothing against like my teacher for one of my classes, manufacturing. I just did not like what we were learning. It was boring, but now here I am like in the manufacturing world. And it's not actually like that class. So it's just interesting, like now almost at the end, how much you learn about that type of stuff. But in terms of like coursework, I really liked quality engineering, which is almost like testing the quality and finding out variables of like, oh, do we actually need someone here? Do we need to check the product one more time before it goes out to like make sure that it's gonna last the whole warranty or like whatever. So that was definitely my favorite class. But I mean, IE's kind of all over the place and doesn't have any correlation in any of our classes because it's pretty much each one is a direction you can go in. So but with that, like, would you say like you guys' classes is like that too, where like if you don't like a class, it correlates to you wouldn't like it in the workforce, or it's pretty much like dead?
You know what? I have like something on that too.
So I definitely think that has a lot to do with it, because definitely foundational stuff. So let's say like Reed, like you were saying, you like that lull where you have those like courses that teach you the fundamentals of everything. If you find that frustrating, then there is a very good chance that you don't want to go deeper into that. But I definitely agree. Like, let's say if it's like a later in class and like you did all this work, it's like if I went in to take one of these upper level architecture classes, like, man, this sucks. Then I was like, man, I guess I'm wasting my time. Well, I don't think so. I think that can really depend on how things work, because I think as of right now, and I hopefully this changes soon, the way that some classes are taught is very detached from what industry actually does. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think some classes do a good job, but some of them, like if you have like a bad experience, and you like the topic, I would say take a step back and like do your own research on it. Like looking up, is this what actual architecture is? Where is this used? Because there might be a detachment of something that you're not grasping, like conceptually, that you're not making the physical connection to it that makes sense. But If it's something you don't like and you're frustrated with it, then whatever. Like, it's gone. You don't have to deal with it. But I would say if you're in that situation, do your own research, ask the professor questions if that's what it's actually like, and look up videos of people doing industry so you can see that difference.
I took a class called Linear Control Systems. I hated it. And then my entire internship was designing a control system, which I really enjoyed doing that. But I hated the class that was control systems. So it really just, I didn't like the teacher. So it was that. But also, I feel like the coursework compared to seeing it in industry, very, very different. Very, very, very different. Yeah. Do you guys have anything on that?
I actually had the exact inverse experience of you, where I
Whoa.
had worked on a control system in an internship, and I was like, this is pretty fun. And then I got to the actual like aerospace controls class,
Mm-hmm.
and it was brutal and not fun at all. And I was like, this isn't how they do it at all.
Yeah, yeah. You did it like, yep, that's hilarious. My favorite classes have all been signals classes, which is super weird because I'm not on the signal track for electrical engineering. I'm on the power track, and I hated semiconductors. So we're gonna see how this goes. But digital signal processing with WASFI, absolutely love him. Amazing man. I want to take more classes with him, but I literally can't, so it's fine. Yeah, that's it for me on favorite classes. Everything else is stupid. Everything else, I swear to God, I have to code in every class.
embedded system.
Don't ever talk to me about embedded systems again. No, after after Thursday next week, I'm never talking about embedded systems ever again.
Oh man, that's brutal. It's such a great class.
Why are you lying?
I'm not lying.
He's lying.
I'm not lying.
He's definitely lying. Anyways, so guys, do you have any like last minute advice or something to or something to tell people, to kind of get them through? I mean, well, this won't air until after finals, so maybe not the finals part, but yeah, do you have any advice?
That I haven't said already. Make sure you go to conferences. Definitely get involved in your clubs, even if you maybe don't know what engineering discipline you're going to go explore all the clubs. And they all will have plenty to tell you. Definitely don't be afraid to talk to the officers because they can offer a lot of help, and they've been through, everything that you've been going through. Because I definitely got a lot of help from the officers, like when I was a freshman. But yeah, I think just make sure you get out of your comfort zone, and even if it isn't art clubs that you're getting involved in, like, which you should still get involved in art clubs, go find something else that you're passionate about. Like, I'm also in the running club. If it's something like that, go be involved in that. Like, so definitely just find something with people with similar interests with you, because I know sometimes it's really intimidating, especially when you first get to college, to make friends, and that's really the easiest way. So
Yeah. So my system is, again, the propulsion system, which is like a very high level concept in aerospace. It's probably like the least approachable of all the systems. And the number one thing that I always tell people is like, yes, this is scary, but just jump into it, and you'll learn what you need to. But you being there and gaining that experience is far more important than you possibly not knowing something. And I think that really applies to like any club in any position, is like, you hurt yourself more by not going for something that you think is interesting than going for it and being afraid of failing.
Yeah, I would second that. My advice is definitely about the concept of imposter syndrome, and especially on the propulsion team. That's something that students feel like, because we jump them right into the rocketry projects, and how like it's actually pretty easy to understand, but at first it's just so intimidating, and it's honestly kind of scary. I've definitely been scared for a big significant portion of like me, like at UCF. But if you're not feeling like an imposter, then you're not outside of your comfort zone. It's really important to know where your edge is and to live just beyond it. And so my advice to students is that like all this stuff is accessible. You can do it, and it's supposed to feel scary. So be okay with that and actually like seek it out.
100%. And I think that that piece of advice goes across like every engineering discipline and even like your own endeavors is I think you should seek out to be uncomfortable. Don't get trapped in this idea where you have to feel living cushy, living good all the time. It's because that state, like you're not improving, you're not growing, you're not learning. And if you want to do that and get to a point where if you have ambitious goals, you got to do ambitious things. And if engineering was supposed to be a cushy, easy job, then everybody would do it. And there's a reason why people don't. So definitely, a lot of people have done this before. It's not impossible. For the new freshmen, juniors, sophomores listening to this, or even people who haven't gotten internships or getting into those, it's okay to your feelings are justified. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to feel like you don't know that much right now, but throw yourself in difficult situations because you'll have an army right behind you to support you and making sure you grow and learn. So be courageous, be brave, and be epic.
Yeah, well said.
All right, but I think that wraps it up, guys. Thank you guys for coming out. I'm very glad to have you here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. But you guys have a fantastic rest of the day today. I look forward to IEEE collaborating with you guys even more. But you guys take care. Epic outro. Epic outro.
What should it be? This has been the Knights Open Circuit podcast from UCS IEEE. Tune in next time for a new episode on some other clubs.